start off with, you start again? This is starting, I'd like to start off with pledge, and Jeff, if you would mind doing the prayer for us, we can.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the freedom to be able to meet the public and lead our local government. And ask for your guidance. In His name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
I'd like to go ahead at this time, declare a quorum. And all the folks here in place. I need a motion to approve our agenda. There wasn't a lot of input this time.
I'd make a motion we approve the agenda as written.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Although may or may not be in, I'd like to go ahead and discuss the minutes if I could, the approval of the minutes or disapproval. And then everybody has had an opportunity to read the Fire Territory Board meetings, the minutes.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
I got, oh, those are the most updated version of the minutes that I've got 2 copies of out here for signatures. John sent me some stuff earlier today, and I got that incorporated into it. But I was unable to get with Audra to look at the tape. He had a question about something that was said in a couple places about what was on the tape.
Okay.
And I just put down that I left what John said about check the tape, because Audra was busy in the office, and I didn't get to talk to her until later in the day anyway. She wouldn't have had time to pull the tape.
Probably had a ratio.
Yeah, but I did make corrections that Chief White had asked for, and it was just a couple little things. He made a mistake about some last year's budget should have been this year's budget, however he said it. But everything has been corrected for your approval. That's all I have.
Okay. And you've had incorporated John's
Yeah,
changes in there?
John's changes in there too. I know John's looking over it, and if you want to.
Okay, we'll take a few minutes out. And thank you for doing it.
No problem.
And I'm gonna turn my phone off because I'm not a bigger tag.
Looks like everything is in there.
Okay.
Make a motion with the corrections here on these, if we accept them.
Okay, we'll make a motion's been made, second motion.
Okay, I second that motion.
We have a second, and then the minutes are approved as read with all the changes made to it. Want to go ahead and sign the minutes now? So
Yeah, we can sign it. You can move on and sign it as we go along if you want.
okay, all right. Let's go ahead and move on, then we'll sign it before we go away. Let's go on our old business. What I put down basically, although we had discussed the eBay sale of the Crown Vic at the last meeting, the township has approved to go in forward. Chris sent me some information. She wanted to know whether or not we could maybe possibly, which makes sense, I've sold stuff on eBay before, additional pictures of the Crown Vic, maybe a picture from the rear and maybe the good size of the car. I will provide you, Jason, a copy of what was sent to me. It's pretty well standardized for eBay anyway.
The letter that you've seen,
In other words, if you want to take more pictures, for what we're asking for, maybe it will help sell the car a little quicker. As a reminder, we decided to start the bid at $3,000 and also have a reserve of $3,000 because we've got quite a bit of money invested in that car. We'll make sure we'll recoup most of that. And I'm pretty sure it'll sell pretty quick on eBay. Obviously, as Jerry knows, when he was chief of police, he didn't get a lot of money for the cars. It was maybe $3,000 in some cases, maybe less in other cases. They don't give a lot, so because of the mileage, basically, the use. So if as a recommendation, if you want, get some additional pictures and then provide that to trustees and go ahead and get that going with
I've already provided her.
You already did, so you've accomplished that already?
Yeah, I've already provided her with a description of the vehicle. She was given some pictures. I don't know if it was all the way around. I did not take the pictures, but I did write the description. And I did pull off Kelley Blue Book what the vehicle's worth. And it was showing about $2,600, $2,700.
And
valued at, so.
when was that done?
I think it was the end of last week or Monday this week.
This is something new.
Yeah. So, and I did get the email on this already.
Oh, you did already, so, okay.
Would we want to lower the starting bid out?
We could do that.
I mean, we can hold the reserve at whatever we want, but it might start the bid out at 2,000 or 2,500 or something like that. Less than the Kelley Blue Book.
Did you include the Kelley Blue Book price in the ad? I know some people do. I don't
Well,
do that, but
I printed off and gave to Chris what it showed, but I knew from previous conversations, you guys mentioned $3,000, sorry, 3,000, so that's why I was gonna make mention in this meeting that Kelley Blue Book was a little bit lower than that, to see what you wanted to do. That way we could tell Chris to change that number.
Okay.
But, I mean, that's strictly up to the board.
I don't have any particular reason not to go forward on that and change the,
Put the set reserve at
Yeah.
2,500.
change the amount, the starting bid. I have no issue on that if you want to do that. John?
we're gonna put a reserve on for $3,000.
We are.
That's what we had stated. I don't know, do you want to discuss changing that with the Kelley Blue Book at 26? Would we want to put I mean, granted, the more we get out of it, the better,
But also, if it doesn't sell, we get it back and we still pay for the ad. And
Yeah.
I don't know what that
Well, I don't know
costs
how
on
they-
eBay.
On eBay, there's really, if you put a reserve on something, it's gonna cost you $15 to put that in there for a reserve. I've got my bike in and out of eBay, so I've reduced the price. And it's, any change you make on it is like $2, you make a change. They're not asking for a percentage of the take or anything like that. It's $15 if you put a reserve on an item you sell, and $2 for every change you make.
would we want to reset the reserve to the Kelley Blue Book?
Probably be a bad idea. And not post the Blue Book value on the
Yeah, I
ad.
would-
I mean, some people do, some people do that just to try to get people to think it's worth more, but we're asking what the Blue Book shows, so.
It's kind of like the guy in Goodwill, it's got that pretty dress, somebody will want to buy that dress, it may only be worth $1, but to someone it's worth more money, somebody wants a Crown Vic, who knows? So you want to go ahead and lower that consensus of the board, lower the reserve?
I'll make a motion, we lower the Blue Book value, or lower the reserve to whatever the Blue Book value stated, that Chief Lemons has, and we start the bid out at $2,500.
Okay, we want to go ahead and, let's do it down to $2,600 for the reserve, and start the bid at $2,500.
That sounds fine to me.
I'll second Jeff's motion.
Okay. Okay, it's approved as stated.
I will see that trustee Miller gets a few more pictures.
Okay, just, a few more, maybe from the side and one from the rear.
I found when you sell stuff online, the better the pictures, the better it seems to sell.
Yeah.
If they say you can put 15 pictures in it, I would put the maximum amount of pictures. Also, if there's any defects in the item, if you'll take a picture of the defect and explain the defect, people will feel you're being more honest and up front with them.
Yeah.
So if it's got a dent in it or a rust spot or something like that, if you'll take a picture of that item and say, this is the right rear quarter panel rust spot, they seem to think, well, if the guy's gonna tell me every little nook and cranny that's wrong with it, they're gonna think it's more honest.
And they're gonna figure it's gotta be some flaw with the vehicle, it's
Right.
that age.
We talked about that with the township, the Explorer. There's a couple of rust spots in it, and we were gonna take close-ups of the rust spots so people could see, because I figured a guy who maybe does body work might buy it and say, hey, I can fix that for a couple $100.
Okay.
Just a thought, if we can.
Last time, on our old business too, we talked about the roof repair status. And were we waiting for another bid, Jeff, or what?
We're waiting for the actual written quote from Andy Earmert was supposed to get with Inc. Construction, and I haven't gotten anything from him. I asked him the last board meeting if he would give me a copy of that so I could present it to the township board. We did discuss that at the township board, and we discussed to spend up to $13,000 out of township funds to help supplement the repair. But that's contingent on getting the actual quote, and we want to look at that first, We do want to get the roof fixed this year, but we got to see the quote, and I haven't seen the quote yet. I think that's only the right thing to do before we commit funds.
John, if you have an opportunity, would you remind Andy to see what?
Yeah, I asked him about that a day or so ago, and Hank is still not back. He's doing a big job out of state, so he still wasn't able to get with him yet, but I'm sure as soon as he gets back in town.
Andy did mention a couple meetings ago that he was gonna, we gave him permission to tell Hank to go ahead and put it on a schedule. I don't know if that's gotten done, hopefully it has.
I think whenever he called and found out that he was out of state, when he requested a copy, hard copy of that, that's when he found, he was relaying a message to put that job on the schedule, so I think he has. I'm
Okay.
not 100% sure without asking, but I can confirm that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any other old business? Anyone, John,
Oh,
Judge, or Jason?
The only other thing that I would add is at the last meeting, it was requested by trustee Miller, a purchase order, a bill paying process, flow chart. We have done that. We have met with trustee Miller, and she liked what we put forth, so she agreed to it.
She understands the flow chart.
Yes. And the people at the meeting was you, I, Chief White, and trustee Miller, so.
That's all been clarified.
Yes,
She's okay
if
with it.
everybody, I did bring a copy, if everybody wanted to see it again.
Well, the last meeting, there was another box down here, and Chief White must have eliminated that or changed one of these boxes or something, right?
Yeah, conversation with her.
So do we need a motion to approve that flow chart?
I don't think so, we did that last time, didn't
We discussed it.
Yeah,
in our
we
old
did.
business.
I would like to get a fresh copy of that, because the other one I've got spelling writing and stuff on it. If you want to email it to us, that's fine, I can print it off or whatever.
Okay, we can do that.
If not, do we have any other old business? And now we'll move on to new business. One of the things that we talked about, and one of the things concerning the township, where we're at in our grant and stuff like that, as it may or may not relate to the hiring process. We want to get a new officer hired by 1 June.
Correct.
So let's go with the grant portion. Can you give us an update on the existing money left on the grants or
Yes.
on the records?
Back in March, the SAFER grant, which was on a 2-year cycle from 2012, ended. There was funds remaining. The remaining funds were based on two things real quick. One, we had a career firefighter during study leave at the end of December, and the original amount that we asked FEMA for, we didn't end up using that full amount. And the reason was because the new people coming in were making more money than the people that had been there since we've started. So to streamline things, the difference was the paramedics received a stipend for being a paramedic, which is typical in the fire service. So at the remaining, the amount left was, when the grant ended, was a total of $89,835. Now, of that money, $53,000 of that money is to be used for paramedic firefighter Coonfield, who we got a 1-year extension by the federal government because he is a veteran. So, of that amount, the $89,835 minus $53,000 leaves a total of $36,835 left. I have asked FEMA to use that money in that. FEMA has allowed us to do that. They've given us the permission. Their thing was, their stipulation was the new person had to be hired and on the job by June 1st, and we had till the end of the year to expend that money, to use all that money. The timeline as far as hiring somebody has been a challenge. Spending the money by year's end isn't an issue. So that answers the FEMA portion. The only other thing I would add to the FEMA portion is I've made several phone calls to FEMA trying to get an answer, because the individual that we just made an offer, job offer to, which I'll talk more about in a minute, is also a veteran. So I was going to see if FEMA would give us more money to continue his employment for another year. To be quite honest with the board, from what I've read, I don't think that's possible, because that extension that we got from Mr. Coonfield has since passed. But I'm going to try. So that's where we're at with the federal grant.
Now, do you know when you'll get an answer back on, or reply back from FEMA on this extension? That you're pretty sure that ain't gonna happen, but do you know when? Because that'll have to be factored in the budget process as to whether or not we get this extension, or it's gonna have, start gonna come out of this budget, or if we get the extension, it'll affect the budget.
Right. No, I do not. I can tell you that I've tried twice today, I tried yesterday, and I tried on Monday. I've made several attempts to contact Mrs. Godfrey out there at FEMA, in which her office is in DC, and I have not received a phone call back. But I'm doing my due diligence to get an answer. I was hoping to have one by tonight.
Okay.
Which leads me into the, if there's no more questions reference that, I'll go into the.
Jeff, you have a question?
My only question is, what Johnny was mentioning, the budget. We don't have any idea how much grant money we're gonna get for next year.
The only money that and again, and we've been working on this budget, so.
Right.
And I'll go into that next. You could figure on roughly $13,000 for Mr. Coonfield will be what we have to work with as far as federal money for next year. This $36,835 that I just mentioned will all be used up by year's end. We have to use it by year's end. And again, that's going to go for the new hire. So back to your original question, roughly $13,000 from this grant because of the extension will carry over for next year.
And that's all we can, we've had so many grants, I get kind of confused when one starts and stops. And is the volunteer grant done? Is it, I mean, are we still going to be getting any funds for that coming in, or?
With a volunteer grant is separate from this grant.
Right, it's a separate grant.
We will still have, I think, roughly another year on it.
Okay.
But again, that's not used for employment.
Right.
So, is that going to affect our budget any moving forward? The volunteer grant, no.
Okay.
No. Now, no. I'm confused a little bit more than that, so, no.
That's all, yeah, that's all I need on that.
Okay, you're saying that this $36,000 has gotta be used by year's end. we're not quite halfway in the middle of the year, so they're sitting at 36,000, so that can pay for his salary for the rest of the year, plus
benefits.
benefits and everything else, so that, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure that wasn't just for salary only, cause I was gonna say 36,000 for
His salary and
7
benefits.
months. You know, that's a pretty good salary compared to what the rest of the guys were, so I just wanted to clarify that, that's what that was for benefits and everything.
So we're, right now, we're setting good, moving forward.
Great.
As far as the new hire, the last board meeting, I mentioned that we did, in conjunction with the Big Four, a countywide hiring process. In the top 50, there was only 5 paramedics, and the paramedic is what we needed, because that's what Mr. Study was. Westfield grabbed the first 2. The next 3 I called, and they were not willing to leave their current position to come here because they were already making more money, and they were already in a we'll just say a better retirement fund. So we did an internal process because we had 3 candidates that did meet what we were looking for. We have finished that process. We made a conditional offer of employment to a Sean Dayton on Sunday. I believe I have a copy of the very letter that we sent him. I will show the board. Now, I have to do this. It's just standard practice. In this conditional offer, it tells
This is
him.
the thing about Josh Mass, I'm sorry.
Right, this was just an example.
Oh, okay, oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. I didn't bring the signed copy that he did, so I apologize for not specifying that. In the conditional offer of employment, it states basically what he would be making, but also that he was only going to receive the job providing that he passed his physical and psychological test with Public Safety Medical out of Indianapolis. He went Monday for his physical and psychological test, and I have not heard back. Typically, it takes about a week for those results to come back, and it's only been a couple days. I did try to reach out to Public Safety Medical today to Jim Kenny, who's our contact down there, and he was not in today. So that's where we're at. As soon as I get the results back, there will be a safety board meeting. It will be brought before the safety board for their approval of hiring Mr. Dayton, and then he will start, and he will be started before June 1st.
Do we have a backup plan?
God, I hope I don't need it.
Well, I'm just saying, that all of a sudden,
Does that mean no?
The backup plan is this: we have 3 people on the list. We will immediately go to the next person. But yes, I pray that we don't have to.
how far are they in the process as far as physicals?
The other 2 have not done done physicals because we did not offer them. I'd have to actually offer them a conditional offer of employment.
So the only drawback we would have, if it comes to the point where they didn't meet the qualifications, would be the hard issue of trying to get this next guy to get his physical and his mental.
Yes.
And do we know how quick we get him into that system?
Probably I can probably get him in and out within a week. So, that's why every day I'm calling Public Safety Medical and saying, hey, please tell me, please tell me. So far I will say on Public Safety Medical's behalf, they have been very good to work with, and typically where it would take a while to get a career candidate in for a physical psych test, it only takes several weeks, but they got us in right away, because I told them we were under a time frame with FEMA, so.
IPSB.
Yeah. Well, no, IPSB did the written test, Public Safety Medical were the.
But that's all part of that same process,
Yeah.
that's secondary to that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Reference the budget.
Maybe,
Okay, good.
and we'll go ahead and throw that in there, because I got that as new business. I'd asked Chris to get a hold of the township's financial advisor, for him to figure out how much revenue from property tax and all that possibly coming in for 2016. She got an answer back today, The revenue from property tax, EIT, excise, and CBET is $708,500. There will be no costs to the territory for that information. Because that's one thing I asked, how much does it cost the territory to get that information from the, so that's where we're at, so we can go ahead and continue, so we know what kind of basic figure. Were you aware of that?
I got this today. I know when we met 2 days ago, we really had no idea.
Absolutely.
So, but I think this is only a couple $1,000s off from what we originally thought. Reference the budget, I know that it was mentioned to the board that we were gonna try to have something by May. Let me say this, we have been working on this budget. We've met one time with Robin. The hard thing for us is trying to do this, but this is the first time in history that we've ever had to do a budget in May. Because it was only a week ago, or a week and a half ago, that we got information from the trustee, which came from the insurance company, to provide them with information so they could try to calculate what we're gonna have to pay for next year for insurance. So as far as putting the budget together, we don't even know on the insurance yet. In that, I mean, being that this is the first time we had to do this in May, we didn't know until today what we were looking at getting even in revenue. So again, we're trying to hit a moving target. What we've done so far is, I mean, we haven't put any salary increases or anything like that in there. What we had to do, I will say, is because the salaries were all over the board, we're trying to get them where we can say a senior firefighter makes this amount. A firefighter paramedic makes this amount. An officer or a lieutenant makes this amount. And currently, because the territory is new, it's been all over. So we're trying to get everybody equaled out. The difference, as you will see when we do propose this budget, is that there's a few firefighters that will see an increase of $130. That way everybody is on the same playing field. Other than that, operationally, we've left everything the same. What we don't have done in the budget is we don't know about the insurance yet. We've just got this figure, and we have not calculated everybody's FICA, Medicare, FICA, workman's comp, because that right there is another moving target. In 2013 to 2014, let me back up. 2014 to 2015, we were informed that our insurance, that we needed to carry over $6,000 because there was an increase. So in 14, by year's end, we had to find $6,000 in our budget to carry over for this year. In February of this year, we were informed that we needed to come up with $7,000 out of this year's budget for an increase in workman's comp, because we don't find out about workman's comp until year's end. And I think Trustee Miller found out that with how workman's comp's yearly cycle is, we were actually in the rears. So I don't believe that the workman's comp issue, I mean, it's not putting a blame on anybody. I'm just letting the board know that we didn't know that there was going to be an increase in insurance until the end of the year. We didn't know that we were going to find $7,000 out of this year's budget for workman's comp. So we have to add that into this year's budget, I mean, to work the budget that we're working on for next year. But those are really the only increases that will be shown in there. But we're going to do everything we can to stay within that 700. Yeah.
Has there been any research on getting different price quotes for insurance and like workman's comp and that type of thing, and different rates and different schedules?
I will say that I have asked. I've proposed that to Ms. Miller. She's the one that has always done that in the past. I have not done it, and I know the fire chief hadn't done it. where or if Ms. Miller has done that, I cannot answer that question. The one thing with our insurance that is different than some insurances, we have it's a benefit. It's called Provident. And basically what it says, if you're a volunteer or you're a paid part-timer or you're a career person and you get injured, Provident picks up what workman's comp doesn't pay. So you would still get your normal, for instance, if you work at Chrysler and you volunteer and you get injured and you're making $2,000 a week, Provident, that insurance will kick in and you will still get, even though you can't work at Chrysler, you're still gonna get a check.
100% pay.
Yeah, 100% pay.
So I'll mention something. I did talk to her today, and she is getting a quote from PIPCO. Is that right? iPad. See, something like that.
Yeah.
Our insurance company that the territory uses doesn't have IPEP because I don't know if IPEP does the Provident part, but our insurance agent has a friend that does sell IPEP workman's comp, and he has contacted him to get us a quote. So that's in the process to get us a comparison quote of that. I know before the territory was formed, and I was working with the previous trustee, we increased that insurance for the volunteers, mostly that Provident, because we have volunteers that volunteer their time and we don't really pay them for anything. And if they get injured and a guy's making $30,000, $40,000 a year, and then he goes to making 15, he's got to pay his bills. And I thought that it was the least that we could do for people that aren't getting a paycheck to at least take care of them if they get injured. That whole workman's comp thing is it's a mess when it comes to money. But these guys have a dangerous field to work in. If they were clerical staff, it would be a lot less.
Cheaper.
Yeah, there's very few insurance companies that will insure firefighters.
Yeah.
Or police officers.
So you're limited on insurance companies.
Yes.
Does IAC, do they, Indiana cities and towns, do they insure for that?
Well, that's one thing that I know the town of Arcadia is gonna look into, to see whether or not we had an opportunity and we turned it down, and you guys are in that fellow came around and you were incorporated with it. The more people you have on your department, the cheaper that the insurance is gonna be. So the least amount of employees you have with prior conditions, whatever, it's gonna cost you more money. And on the Obamacare, the problem is that there's nothing in writing throughout the year until the end of the year to know what your cost is gonna be for the following year. I don't know why it happens that way, but it really puts a lot of agencies at risk, because they either put too much out there or put a little. We found out, I think from our discussion with Chris, insurance may be anywhere from $28,000 to $32,000, depending on what the bid is going to be for Obamacare health. And that's the big expense. The large expense is getting insurance with the people.
Okay. Is territory different? June the 1st is your deadline for the budget, is that?
No,
Because the other cities and towns, it's not that way.
No, we discussed having the budget done in May because I'm not going to be around very much in June. We thought we were going to have a limit on our amount of availability for meetings. I believe the interlocal says it's supposed to be to the township board in July. So we want to give these guys plenty of time to work on it, but if they don't have all the information, they can't get to us. We were hoping to have that to the township budget, or township board, so we could mull over.
So it's not a state issue?
No,
it's okay.
no, it was a little thing.
Actually, you don't get a projected budget amount until the end of August, or July 1st of August, and that's the way most of your projected budgets you get from the county and
Yeah,
all
that's
that,
really
so you got a number, and last year we didn't even turn it in until September.
Right. That's
And
not,
we just need to have enough reactionary time, that if we turn it in to the township, to have enough time to make changes if needed as we go along, so we meet that 1
well,
July.
and when you're dealing with insurance, that's a problem.
Yeah,
And if I may add to your question, John, I will say this, as far as doing the budget and all that, nothing is off the table when it comes to staying within the confines of the budget. And I would also say this, Chief White and I know I'm preaching to the choir, we have not once gone over our cash reserves, and every year since this territory was formed, we've carried money over. So that is still our intent moving forward, and not just with paying attention to the budget and what we spend. These grants are a big part of, and it should be, irregardless of any fire chief sitting here moving forward for this territory, because that's the one thing that's going to save the taxpayers of the territory money in the long run.
And we're very fortunate that we've had these many grants.
Almost
And,
$900,000.
we're gonna have some shortfalls because of White River for one thing, not getting money from them, and shortfalls of money that we've gotten from grants and a little spoils. We added that to the budget, which helped defray a lot of our expenses. So we're gonna be as careful as possible with the budget. And this is why the information from the insurance is so critical. Because if we put too much in there, which I doubt that's gonna be the case, then we got an issue next year, we may be short in other areas.
From what I understand, the insurance company can't calculate what our rates are gonna be because they haven't gotten the formulas from the federal government yet.
And that's not handed out to the end of the year.
Right, and so they're guessing, they're probably giving us higher numbers than what hopefully we'll use, but they don't wanna shock us, if they can. They're in a tight spot too.
One of the things, I know you and the chief's been working on salaries and everything, and at the last meeting, we discussed the budget, and I was being involved with it, and the chief was supposed to get a date and a time, and Jeff, and all, we could meet and sit down and go over this, and when you guys get your numbers all together, I definitely still wanna have that meeting. When you guys get all your numbers together on the salaries and everything that you're trying to get, and like I said, I understand you got a moving target, but I'd like to go through that thing with a fine tooth comb before we submit it to the township. And this $700 and some thousand, that's actually close to what DLGF approved for the budget itself. I mean, it was 600 and some thousand, and that's not carryover, that's not EMS funds. And I don't know where you guys are at as far as your numbers right now, coming anywhere near that without using them other dollars. But to me, those other numbers are not, the EMS funds and different things like that was carryover money is not a guaranteed dollar amount every year, and I'd like to try to get that within this budget number right here that we know that DLGF's gonna approve, and if we can hit that number, we're gonna be good.
I think that last year, that number we've got that's tax dollars.
Right.
That's what we get from property
This
taxes.
right here.
Yeah, all the extra taxes. I believe last year, wasn't that number around 693,000?
Yeah, it was right at 700.
The state gives you like a 2.6% increase right now. So I, without doing the math, I think if you did a 2.6% increase on that 693, you're probably looking at the 80 or 708, which falls into normal categories of what the state normally does.
And if you look at that last year's budget, I think it looked like we were almost getting like 900,000 or $1 million.
That was carryover and EMS money and all that factored into that.
In grant money.
A lot of it was grant money.
So you're not gonna see that on this year's budget. I will tell you this, I've said this since I came to Jackson Fire, and I'll say it when I leave here and I'm chief somewhere else. If you do not have to, you want to limit spending any EMS money on salaries. We may have to.
Down on it.
We may have to, and at times that happens. But if at all possible, as we move forward, if we can wean ourselves off of spending EMS money for salaries, that is the best thing for any fire department.
So I said, we need to go through the budget and cut everything out that we can to try and hit that number and not use any EMS dollars at all if at all possible, because, that's just that's
Well,
an
see,
unsure number, and it's not a guaranteed, there's gonna be
Right.
revenue coming in.
But
And you don't know how many runs you're gonna have. Who knows?
well, we don't,
You know?
but let me say this, in that figure from last year, which is, other than the small increase that the state would give, there are, in the money we carry over, there were things last year that we needed to do that we didn't do. So from an operational standpoint, there's really no fluff in there, because again, we could have used all of that money, but we didn't. And we didn't because we were afraid moving forward, based on what we were being told because of the COVID, that we were gonna need that money. So we didn't do certain things to carry money over, because we knew we were gonna need it for this year. So, but I agree 100% with the board, and we will do our due diligence to stay within that budget.
When do you anticipate to have the budget? I don't know when you're going on vacation.
Which vacation?
Yeah, the first one.
The one after yours.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to be farming that.
I would like to have something sometime here. I don't want to give a date. I'll say sometime in June. I know you're gonna be gone.
Yeah, we got another, next meeting's June 18th, I believe.
June 18th.
Can we shoot for something around that time frame?
We can do our best, but I will say this, in order to comply with the board, and we've met with Robin once, I have every intention to meet with Robin again. Once we get some better figures on paper, that's when I would like to meet with either all of you or both of you.
Prior to the 18th?
Prior to the 18th, because I don't want to, here's my thing, unlike anybody else, I want to be able to give you answers without having to say, well, I'll find out, I'll come back to you. Because I don't like that as elected official, you don't like that as elected official.
Now, the only thing we can ask for is the most accurate figures you can come up with.
Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of it's moving targets, you don't know the number, you ain't gonna get the number until that, whatever it is, it's out there,
If
or
you-
insurance, or whatever's gonna come up with a number.
If I'm unavailable to meet and you guys wanna meet for that, you can meet, because it wouldn't be a quorum,
I'd like to send it to you.
and you guys could mull over it and look at it, and then I can look at it at a later time. Cause it's gonna be hard for me to be around a lot in June.
I do have a question. The money for the Explorer, once it's sold, does that go back to the fire department?
It goes back to the township. And the township has decided in the last meeting that they're gonna keep the money and determine it later, what they wanna do with it. They're gonna put it in the Cuban fire or something like that. They don't expect to get very much money out of it anyway.
No, I'm just curious what was gonna happen with it.
We brought that up in the last township board meeting, and they said at this time they wanted to keep it. We also discussed like the radio sales and stuff like that, they wanted to do the same thing there. As far as Chief asked about selling radios and excess equipment, and we said that we're fine with that. It's just they wanted to,
It's nice to have a little rainy day fund, just in case you need some.
Sure.
now, I mean, that's, if that money's needed, I mean, there can be a request to spend it.
Sure. I just didn't know, I wanted to ask. I will say this, since this is a public meeting, I know that the township purchased a new lawnmower, which our guys mow the lawn, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of the fire department. The old mower was shot, and
It was overdue.
the new mower is working out
The
great.
motor was fine, but the platform and everything else
I
fall
think it
apart
had
and
been used
blades.
a little bit.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank the township board for purchasing that, so.
I did have one question while we're still talking about the budget. Maurice brought up White River. Has anybody discussed anything with White River? I'm not staying out of that.
We're going, we need to approach it again. I don't know, maybe after we submit our budget, I'm not quite sure, but I'm not sure how much faster she wants to get back into the saddle and talk about her participation with us. I mean, I'd like to see it,
Yeah.
you know?
Well,
Right now, the best person we've used and got further was with Jason. She wouldn't go anything with me, so she didn't like me. I intimidated her. And
I'm just saying, that could have drastically affected our budget, because that was a loss of about $50,000 in revenue.
yeah.
The contract and the transports combined. That could really boost up our budget and fill in some voids. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, some of the things that we discussed among each other, we've talked in the past, if we could integrate another district or another area north of us, if they're within the spectrum talk about our neighbors in the north, there's only one ambulance that they have for the entire county. I don't know, that we discussed a little bit, I'm not sure if we were gonna move forward. I know the chief and I talked, we talked about it.
We've got 2 more runs in there in the last, I'd say month, 2 months, we've been up there 3 times, which is 3 times more than normal. They knew that we have an ambulance service, they just didn't know that Atlanta had a medic up there. And we told them that it wasn't all the time, but it was more than half the time. So they started utilizing this. I will say, as far as a 25-year career firefighter, moving forward, and you guys have found this out very quickly, that the future of the fire service is EMS. That's where the money's at, that's where the growth's at, and that's what's gonna keep your head above water. So, you can see it through Cicero, needing White River's money as much as we do. Noblesville keeps adding ambulances, Noblesville's adding ambulances.
The adage used to be we're a fire department that does EMS, and really it should be we're an EMS department that does fire. Because we don't have to make fires anymore.
So I'd like to see some challenge on that. Another thing too, I wanna challenge the chief is more part-time personnel. If we go out there and need more part-time person, we need more part-timers. Because we start slowly dwindling on who we have available to work. And I know our issue has always been on that as far as keeping people up there. So maybe an effort in that area. So after we get the full-time, we don't want to lose any money from that grant, so.
Did I understand you right, you're gonna approach White River again? Somebody?
I have,
At some point, we're gonna do that. It's all about timing. It's hard for us to get a hold of her now because of the season, the farming season. I'm not sure what she's involved in other things, but it seems like she's hard to get a hold of during that period of time.
Do they have regular board meetings out there?
I'm not sure.
I don't think they have near as many as we do. But they do have they have to have at least 2 a year, state statute.
I also want to bring about with a salary ordinance. We talked unofficially in the meeting, the discussion, and what we said forward, what was the old one, we're going to separate that and use the same format and add the stipends in there in that salary. So this way, if you've got somebody that's got more experience, he's worth more money. And I think it'll keep everything standardized. You have a standard salary. If we put that $130, everybody's on the same route, but those that have more experience and more time, the extra $5,000, the $3,000, whatever, we may add, and then a stipend would help clarify that. I know the chief is working on that. We'll get that to Chris too as well. Any more discussion on the budget? Under other, I failed to put it on there, but I thought it would be an item of interest. The town of Arcadia had their board meeting this past Monday, and the town of Arcadia voted on the 5-member board, and they approved our recommendation for approval has gone forward on that. So now all we wait now for the records of township. To my understanding, there will be a special meeting, Jeff, on that?
Yeah, they got the vote on that got tabled last time. The members wanted to look over the document, and they're going to have a special meeting. And I'm not sure of the date. I think it's beginning of.
I got it here somewhere.
The first 3 days of June.
Well, my hope is to get it done before 1 June, but obviously that's not going to happen. Because we discussed in the past, and the township agreed that, having a 5-board member would be more efficient. And that was my goal in the last 90 days, is to make that happen, so.
The 27th, which is next Wednesday.
27th of May?
27th, yeah,
Maybe it will.
3 o'clock.
I had one thing I just thought I wanted to add to new business, if you don't mind.
No, please.
I sent an email out earlier requesting if anybody had the minutes, the agenda and minutes for the safety board meetings we've had thus far. Those those need to be kept with our records, because that's public record also. And I don't know if, I know Andy's on the safety board, and Johnny, you're on the safety board. I didn't know if anybody kept any minutes that we could
We got it.
just post or
We
keep.
got the
on our
minutes of the first meeting we had. The second meeting has not been, we haven't had a follow-up meeting to approve those minutes. Andy has got those minutes, and he's gonna give them to Chris
Okay, that'd be
on
great.
that, on the meeting that they have been approved, the first meeting we had that have been approved. So, we got one meeting, we're gonna have another meeting, actually on the 27th.
And that's to discuss the new hire, I assume?
Yeah. So we got a meeting scheduled for the 27th also on the safety board, and we'll be approving that second set.
What time is your safety board?
That meeting is, I think it's scheduled at 6 o'clock at Atlanta Town Hall, 27th. Andy's going to be, I just talked to him about that on the way down here, and he's going to be advertising that in the paper, and he'll send out an email with the date and the time and everything. It'll be part of the advertisement. So, but I think it's 6 o'clock at Atlanta Town Hall, 27th.
I have nothing further.
I'm just gonna make a comment. I've met with Chris on a couple of occasions. One of the things that I said I would do is that, because we talk about a lot of issues here, a lot of discussion, and sometimes it's hard to differentiate whether or not someone's made a motion on a certain new business, and she wouldn't get that information till later. So I told her I would provide her and send her an email after our meetings with the highlight of what we discussed ahead of time, or any motions that we made to make any changes. Primarily, she wants to be informed on things that change and it affects the township.
I think she requested any changes like that in writing too.
And I asked her if email would do it. She said it would do it. So that's what I will do.
Thanks for the clarification.
She said the email would do it.
She told me that sending her an email would suffice to be it in writing.
Another thing I would have, you mentioned a couple meetings ago about a new business coming into Arcadia, diving.
Yeah, let me explain a little bit of that so you know, and that could be, they also could increase the services too. We have a fellow, I forgot his name now, I apologize. He's an Olympic coach, four-time Olympic coach, champion, international, that coached the fellow that won the gold medal in China from Noblesville. Yeah, he brought the gold medal into the town hall one time. We saw it. Actually, I got to hold it, and also the female that won the gold medal. So he's a renowned coach. He coached in Indiana for a while. He coached at UCLA. I mean, there's several areas he coached, pretty predominant. And he was looking for land here in the North Country to find, because it's more available out here, or available. And he did purchase the old Christian church up here. He got a good price on that.
They're gonna put a pool in it?
Well, actually, he gets his pool service from the high school, and also Noblesville Pool. It pays him an amount of money that, to train those folks. There's gonna be a large structure out here, and the old parking lot's gonna be built. I forgot how many feet, 90 feet by something or other. It's gonna be a large
An
one.
80 by 90 building or something like that.
And they're gonna have trampolines in there and other exercise apparatuses that's gonna help the students. In fact, he's got students there now, and he's rebuilding, making quarters for them. They cook meals for them. So we're gonna have folks not only from the United States, but also from other countries that'll come here to train under his care. And this is something that I think, and I kind of push a little bit, it'll bring maybe this part of the country to light somewhere. Maybe it'll attract business, who knows, little shops with Wi-Fi, that kind of stuff for kids. So they range anywhere from teenagers,
8 to 18.
yeah, all the way up to the age 18.
They'll be housed over there.
They'll
too.
be housed over there.
They'll not be driving.
Absolutely.
He came in today, instructors will live upstairs. There will not be a phone in there other than cell phones, because I asked if there was gonna be a way of notifying the dispatch center if there was a fire there, or fire alarm. And he said no. I did ask him to put a Knox box. I said, I don't believe it's a town requirement, but I said, if you would consider it, I would get you the application. It's a couple $100. Explained to him what it was, and he said,
That's part of building code, that they don't have phone.
yeah, and he said absolutely. So we're working, the fire department's working with him on getting that done.
I'm excited about it, to just see what's gonna happen in the next year or so, and, you know, it'll attract a lot of the folks up here that have kids that are interested in diving. They're personally selected by this team. They all have the same, they look at certain attributes that the possible Olympians may have, and they take those. Sure, so they're charged anywhere from $600 to $800 a month for training. But they also take care of them, you know, they do the lodging, and they also feed them and all that. So, and they have a bus that'll transport them from event to event, from training to training. They're not allowed in their own cars and just, you know, take off. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Do you know if the building's gonna be sprinkled? No fire alarm, no sprinkler? Highlight it.
Yeah, he's gonna have to meet building code, and I think our building inspector's already told him that. If not, he's telling the people who's building that area, it's gonna have to be in there. It's a public building. Oh, it's privately owned, he still has to meet certain criteria, so. It's a business.
Yeah, he seemed very nice.
Yeah, he seemed very, yeah.
So did he have to get an occupancy change when he went from I guess a church or?
That was already approved by the commission.
That was what the sale was pending on, for they got variance to change.
Yeah, the variance was approved, and, the folks that bought that building originally took more than what they could handle, but they spent probably around $70,000 in that building to renovate what they had renovated, so they got a pretty good start on it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting.
New restaurant gonna be opening up soon here on Main Street.
Really?
It's over here, it'll be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All of their expertise will be in pizza. They're gonna have available in the morning to
We
lunch.
need another pizza place.
Yeah, definitely, you know, it's a different taste. It's gonna be Greek pizza. Do we have anything, any questions from the public?
I got one. Can you go across the county lines to offer EMS service?
As long as they're contingent to the.
Okay, so we could go into Tipton County,
We
or
could possibly
we could,
That's one of the runs he's referring to, has been over
and
into Cicero Township.
what about Sheridan? Has there been any?
Well, Sheridan, we have a relationship with Sheridan. In fact, I talked to the old fire chief is now in Westwood. Where was he at? Who got a new fire chief?
Joe Lyons took my spot as chief of Westfield, but he was from within the walls of Westfield.
Well, I met him when the old fire chief's on there.
They were on the original discussion.
They have some financial difficulties out there, but we baited them in the past, and they baited us. Well, far in Atlanta, and they came up from Sheridan.
We have mutual aid agreements with all the departments in the county. So if they call, we go to help them, vice versa.
That we do with Cicero too, we offer them our ambulance whenever their ambulance breaks down.
But not White River right now.
Huh?
But not White River right now.
Those two
Okay.
runs that they call us.
Okay.
We're second on
But you don't have a
No, we're
an
second.
agreement.
Okay.
Okay.
Been Sheridan originally in the discussion when, on the territory?
I think they were.
Yes, they will.
Do we have any other comments or concerns? Any new business or other business? If not, we adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.